Hey guys, Magnet here, back with some more tutorials. Today we're going to be talking about Oracle builds in PvT, and namely we're going to be talking about the timings that you can use, what you're supposed to do when you get the Oracles in an opponent's base, and the type of transitions you can play off of Oracles. I mainly want to have this just to describe the usefulness of Oracles, and it seems like a lot of lower level players don't really grasp the whole use of them, and they kind of think it's a little bit of a waste, but we'll explain the reason that those openings are good and how they can be useful if you apply them properly. So let's go ahead and jump into the game here. This is going to be Puck versus Select, and Puck is going to be obviously running that because Select is Terran. So Puck will be opening up with an Oracle, and the first decision you really need to make with Oracles is, am I going to make them before or after my expansion? And actually that really just mostly applies to the Stargate, and it's becoming more and more common nowadays to make them after the expansion. So what you'll see a lot of the time is people will open up just a normal expansion build off of one gas, which is what we're seeing here from Puck, and they'll drop their Stargate immediately afterward, and it proves to be an interesting timing. And it looks like Puck actually dropping a second gas here, and you will want to do stuff like this just to get the Oracles here on time. So you will need to eventually mine from double gas off the one base. So you can take it right away and just mine from 2 on each. You can take it later and mine with 3 like Puck is doing here. There's a lot of different options, but the name of the game is really just getting this expansion down. You also notice a Zealot out here to try and push away the SCV, Militia Corps coming out to defend the Reaper, and then shortly afterward the probe can follow back down and drop the expansion. So this is becoming very, very common. Note the timing on the Nexus, about 4:30 or so. Can be a little bit earlier if you don't get the Zealot. And then the Stargate immediately afterward. So this Stargate is going to provide a lot of different things, and namely the Oracle that's going to be coming out of it. It's going to be covering you on the bases as far as detection. A lot of people would just go straight for a Robo at this point, and that's been really common in this matchup, but the Oracle obviously has detection, and the Oracle can also defend really well against things like mass Reaper plays, if they do something like that, which would be really weird. You don't typically see stuff like that, but I've had it happen before very occasionally. If you're constantly pushing off a lot of Reapers and they're not really dying with your Stalker and Mothership Core, the Oracle can eventually chase them down. That can be a thing. It can also be really good against things like Hellions, because it burns up Hellions really fast, and Hellion openers are really strong, so it kind of covers basically anything that the Terran can do in the early game. And if they do something weird like Banshees, or maybe if they go into really fast drops or mines, you can also get a Phoenix off of there and lift up the mines or kill the Banshee really easily since you have the detection and the Phoenix. So it offers a lot of flexibility against the different Terran openers that can come up. The opener we're going to see from Select, though, obviously a pretty fast expansion after the Reaper, a couple of barracks to follow it up, and these barracks are namely for aggression. This is pretty common to see these 3 barracks, but if the Terran decides to get really aggressive really fast, maybe they can research something like shells and attack you that way. They can pay a lot for it, and that's kind of going to be what happens in this game. So the Oracle's coming out now. It's common to produce 2, but you'll have to decide how many you want to make. You don't usually see more than 2. And when you're coming in here, you need to kind of assess what's going on with the Oracle as you enter their base. So you have the Oracle coming down, you rally it to their base. You need to check to see if there's a factory done, because if there's a factory done, then you run the risk of getting your Oracle blown up by a mine. And that's really common from Terrans, to make a mine early in the game to protect against stuff like this. So if he flies in here and he sees these 3 barracks, which he will see very shortly, he's going to be happy about that, because that doesn't mean he needs to be careful about diving into the mineral line here. Obviously, Select does have some Marines here spread out between his bases to defend against Oracles like this. So players that really have good builds to check against Oracles, they won't lose a ton of SCVs to this, and that's not really the mentality you should get yourself into. That it's all about killing these SCVs on the worker line. Obviously, sometimes you can just fly in there and kind of park it over their worker line if they decide to just disregard the threat of Oracles altogether. But that's, honestly, we should approach it in the sense that players are playing appropriately. So if you happen to get the situation where you get them over their mineral line, then great. Kill all the SCVs and have all the fun in the world. And most players at higher levels will react properly. So if this is the case and you fly in there, you see barracks, there's some Marines sitting there, you can try and pick off 1 or 2 workers and continue to kind of fly around, get little bits of good engagement angles. Of course, save your Oracles here. And the other reason why you want to produce a second Oracle is you can leave it back at your base while you don't really know what's going on. You can rule out things like early factories because they wouldn't have this type of production this fast if they had a factory on the map as well. So then you don't really need to worry about mines. You don't really need to keep this Oracle at home. You can send it back out. And sending it back out is strong because if they don't leave stuff back here when they come to attack you or something like that, then all of a sudden the Oracle can really go nuts on the mineral lines. And that's something that Terrans kind of play around with, is they don't really know how many Oracles are coming. Sometimes they'll get greedy and skip the engineering bay and skip a turret. So you might get into a situation like that. So Puck realizes what's going on. He's just going to swap his Oracles out and switch the hurt one back there and bring the other one forward. And Select is going to be a little bit greedy, and he's just going to decide, you know what, I've held off the Oracle timing. I can probably leave my base here pretty soon. And if he ever does that, or at least he will do that in the near future, but the first and foremost thing that these Oracles are doing is they're making Select stay back in his base. So these two Oracles are coming in together this time, and he didn't send the one back because, like I said, there's no reason to worry about a factory. So a lot of times they will switch them out, just to have the safety back at home, just in case they get attacked or something. But the whole philosophy here is that the Terran really can't move out when there's this many Oracles in their base. They have to keep their army back at home, which allows you back at home to do basically whatever you want, because you're going to be safe from attacks for a long time. And if you do get attacked, you can overcharge with your mothership core. You can use sentries to buy time on ramps or prevent them from getting too close to your nexus or something. And you can bring your Oracles home to help fight if you need to. But the two Oracles in here at a time, they will one-shot SCVs. And note that he's not going straight for the mineral line in any circumstance. He's just trying to kind of skirt around a little bit, trying to dodge the Marines, and you just basically take whatever they give you. If you can pick off SCVs building buildings, then that's perfect. If you can grab SCVs on the gas or something, that's perfect. And note that the Marines are really in the wrong spot right now, so he's just staying away from the Marines and killing whatever he can. So grabs a couple more SCVs here, grabs the one building the engineering base. All this stuff's really getting annoying. And you can keep your Oracles out like this if you really want to. You don't have to bring it back. And now Select feels like, alright, I have a lot of Marines. He's pretty much done with his harass. I'm just going to move out, and I'll try and deal some damage back at Puck's base. And Puck knows that the whole reason that these Oracles are out is to keep Select in his base, because if he leaves, like we were saying, then all of a sudden this is wide open. There's no tools here right now. He's trying to get his turrets up in time, but since Puck knows the timing of the turrets, he can explore in there, and if they're not quite done, all of a sudden there's all these SCVs that are going to die. You can focus down the SCV that's on the building the turret right now. But the big worrisome thing is that you have to say, well, great, you have these Oracles in here, you have them dealing a lot of damage and whatnot. But what about this? What am I supposed to do about this if they have this many Marines and I don't have any tools really back at home? And that's what I was saying earlier, is the overcharge is really strong. You usually want to make a few sentries back at home so that you can force field off. Then if you can overcharge and kind of force field off maybe this area right here, it'll force all these Marines to have to eat a lot of damage, try to kill the Nexus or something. And you can also warp in units back at home as well, such as Zealots, Stalkers, whatever else you got to make in order to make this work. Really having a fairly high gateway count, such as 3 or 4, is a good idea. So he's about to be on 4 right now, and with this many Marines coming across the map, with overcharge, with the sentry energy you should have, I mean, you should be able to hold stuff like this. And if you hold it, more importantly, you're going to be way, way ahead, because you've already killed a lot of workers right now. It's already 49 to 23, so he's killed a ton. And this is really getting out of control for Select. So he's pretty all in at this point. We're going to watch Puck basically do his best to hold this. Realizing he doesn't have all of his forces together right now, he's just going to try and congregate a little bit. And really all you have to do is just warp in gateway units, use your force fields wisely, and you should be able to hold counterattacks like this. And yeah, he just drops the force fields in the exact spot we were talking about. The Zealot's kind of stuck behind the sentries a little bit, so that's a little bit unfortunate. At the same time, he's already cut this army size in half, and if he really needs to, he can bring these Oracles back, and they should be able to help deal with the rest of this army pretty well. Also note that he's using all of his buildings right now, except for his Stargate, to try and make enough stuff to hold this off. So he's chrono boosting his gateways, he's using his robo to make an immortal, and as long as you hold stuff like this, if they decided to leave their base and you're able to do a lot of damage, then they're going to be in a lot of trouble. If they lose this push, then the game's basically over. So the Oracle's been really strong in this game. Basically all that happens is that Puck cleans this up. He has a huge economic advantage like we've seen before, and he just eventually gets to a point where he gets a few Colossus out and walks across the map and kills them. So the transition into Colossus is totally fine. This Forge in the meantime is also really important, and that's in both Colossus or say like a Templar transition is really good. you can go ahead and throw down upgrades on here. Usually armor upgrades are better because you're going to be most likely trying to defend from attacks if you're opening oracles. So you'll see armor in basically every situation as the first upgrade off of this forge. So that's kind of the general idea of oracles. There's a lot of other ideas that we can talk about and look at, and we'll look at a situation that's a lot less ideal so we can see a game playing out a little more normally. So this game is going to be San versus MMA, and San definitely known for doing some different stuff. MMA especially known for turtling quite a bit in this matchup, but I think this was the same series in which MMA was being super aggressive and very out of character. So San decided to go with oracles to try and counter that a little bit and keep MMA stuck in his base for a little longer. So we'll watch that develop as we fast forward here. Of course, let's bring up the names to know who is playing. And we'll get to the point where we show the oracles here. I'm not totally sure if he opens up with an or rather with the Stargate before or after Nexus, but like I said, after the Nexus is pretty common. But with 2 gases this fast, if he's going to mine with all 3 on each, then this is probably going to be Stargate before Nexus. So yeah, I think this is going to be a faster Stargate build. We talked about this a little bit in the openers video because that was more common at the time. This is a little more unusual, but it still can work, and we'll see that in play here. So part of the thing you want to do is you want to kind of hide the Stargate the best you can, and that's why he's putting the pylon over here on the right side of the base, because when most Terrans scan, they're going to scan kind of in this area, and they're going to kind of get this whole area scanned, and if they miss the Stargate, they might not really understand what's going on. So it's kind of the idea of why he's placing it so far over here. There's also a proxy pylon over here just to kind of weird MMA out a little bit. We've talked about this a little bit in scouting videos in the past, but if MMA were to count these pylons, he can count 2. If he came back into the base and only saw another one, then that would be really alarming. Here's the expansion right now, by the way, and we might note that it is at the gold, meaning that you can take a little more risky expands, considering the whole point of the Oracle is to kind of keep them in their base for longer. You can be a little more risky about taking expansions. I've even seen some faster third base builds off of Oracles, just for the pure sake that they usually have to stay in their base with their army for a long time. And then by the time they could come out to try to punish this, it's already too late. So that's kind of the idea behind this build in particular. I know we don't have a lot of maps that have gold bases, but I think gold bases will be a thing for a long time in Starcraft, so this is not really outdated by any means. It's still an option. So another cool thing that San is doing to follow this up is he's following up with a Void Array. And the Void Array follow-up is specifically to deny drops, since he knows that this area right here and this area over here is very vulnerable to dropships, and you can't recover very well with a ground army to those locations. So he is showing that you can follow up with other units. It can be Void Arrays, can be Phoenix. Those are all very viable in terms of stopping drops later in the game. So once you produce your Oracle, you don't have to stop making stuff. You can keep making stuff for a little while. So we're showing the Oracle right now, flying in here, seeing what it can get. Mainly, he wants to see what's going on, and he just saw the factory, so he knows that mines are definitely a possibility, and most often than not, the mines are going to be somewhere in the mineral line. I think he actually hit his mine really, really well. I can't even tell where it is. Yeah, it's behind this geyser, so you can just barely see it. So a lot of Terrans will be really creative with their mine placement. You just have to assume that if there's a factory this early, that there's a mine in their mineral line, and you shouldn't go there. So that's why he's being so cautious with this Oracle. Right now, MMA is very confused. He doesn't really understand what's going on because he hasn't seen an expansion from San yet. And he's also seen a proxy, or what he thinks is a proxy, since this random pylon's out on the map. So it's a little bit of high-level mind games going on here. And of course, the Oracle, part of its use is really just denying extra things that are on the map as well. So he can deny this SCV from seeing what's going on. The SCV should know now, though, that it is an expansion, and MMA should lift off his command center and go back down there. So MMA was actually really worried about a one-base Stargate all-in, which we haven't really talked about yet. But here's a second Void Array on the way. We'll note that this is really kind of about the Oracle in the sense that the Oracle is what's starting all this, but it can continue into later game Stargate production. So it's not like I said, it's not like you just make the one Oracle and that's it. We're going to see a little bit more utility given out of this, of course, with the fact that the mines are being dropped right now, and San's form of detection is this Oracle. By the way, here's the fast third that I was talking about, and the Terran having to stay in their base for a long time. You can usually get away with stuff like this off of Oracle play because they're forced to stay there for so long, or pay the penalty for leaving. So the mine's going to come down. Obviously, you need to find ways to protect against this. He's trying to split up his probes so only one probe dies. And then, of course, he does have the Oracle, and he does have the Phoenix. So if he really wanted to, he could lift up this mine, There's obviously no reason to spend it now because it is on a cooldown, and there's the Void Ray stopping the drop right now. So just because of the Oracle opener, he's really gotten to a really nice place. He can defend drops like all day with this, and his transitions can be pretty flexible. It looks like he wants to go with either Blink or Charge off of this Twilight Council. We'll have to see what that is especially. It looks like it's going to be Charge, so this will be a Templar transition, and we're going to continue to watch him holding these random attacks with his kind of scrappy unit composition right now. Notice the sentries, like we talked about last game, they're very important to a lot of these Stargate openers. The Oracle detection is still active, so if there's any random mines out, he can pick them up with the Phoenix. A lot of really cool utility being displayed with Stargate openers here in this match. So, going to watch for a little longer while we watch the third get saturated and namely kind of identify all the transitions that San is doing behind his Oracle opener. And that is the Templar transition like we were expecting. Going to switch into Storm. And also, there's a little bit of harassment potential as well with these other units. If they happen to be just sitting in their base, not really doing anything, maybe the Void Rays can fly in here and maybe kill a reactor or kill an engineering bay or something weird like that. There's a lot of opportunity for things like that if you did decide to go with Phoenix or Void Rays. You can, if you went for Phoenix especially, you could go in here, maybe try to pick up some SCVs or something. Note the mine is still burrowed, so you have to be a little bit careful about that. But the transition has basically taken place, and we can see that because MMA doesn't really realize all the threats that are going on right now, he's forced to kind of stay in his base for quite a long time. He's taking his own third, but this third has gone pretty much unpunished, and he's had to deal with one little random move out from MMA that didn't do a whole lot. So, so far he's starting to stabilize quite a bit, especially once this storm finishes. Even if there's a ton of Marines, if you can land the one good storm, then all of a sudden it doesn't matter what kind of units he has, because they don't really care about upgrades, and they burn through Marines pretty fast. So Oracle also being noteworthily used for this revelation. So of course the revelation does show you exactly where these units are if you did land the revelation on there. So this is really handy for storm openers especially, because you usually want them to be attacking at you with the storm, and you can see where they are at all times, and you can put your Templar in weird positions that they wouldn't be expecting if you do have that revelation down on the army. So now that we've kind of gone through most of the stages of this game, we can take a look at the status. San's ahead by about 10 workers. He has his own third up, whereas MMA does not. He has all of his tech put together. His storm is done. He can continually use revelation off of his Oracle to reveal where the army is at all times if he wants to land storms or hit feedbacks or whatever. A lot of really cool utility displayed here, and I just wanted to give you guys kind of a good introduction to what Oracle openers are supposed to do and the different ideas that you can get with those. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I'll always be back for more tutorials in the very near future. I think the next one is going to be Colossus and PvP, so look out for that one, and I will be back with that very soon, so take care.